Okay, so let's quickly go over what's included in the box with the iFi Gryphon. You have the DAC itself, of course. It comes with a black, feels like a velvet material of some kind, a carrying bag. You have 3 different cables, type A to type C. This one here is actually longer than these 2 here. Then you have a type C to type C, and then a lightning to type C. You have the warranty card, and then the guide. Okay, let's talk about the design, specifications, inputs, outputs, buttons, and knobs, and we've got quite a few of them to go over. The Gryphon comes in at $599, so that's not cheap, but you are getting a premium product. The build and the design of the Gryphon is very, very cool, and again, the build quality on this is excellent. Just looks and feels very premium. Now, as far as the specifications, this comes with a Burr Brown multi-bit chipset, which if you know me, you know I love the Burr Brown DAC chips. It has a 1900 milliamp battery, and it should give you about 8 hours of playtime. As far as the formats it supports up to DSD 512 and PCM 768, also DXD 768, and it also supports MQA. As far as the Bluetooth formats, it supports aptX Adaptive and aptX HD, LDAC, LHDC, and then of course the regular aptX and aptX Low Latency, and of course AAC. As far as the power output, the Gryphon has quite a bit of power. It has about 1,000 milliwatts at 32 ohms, or 1 watt at 32 ohms from the 4.4 balanced output, and 320 milliwatts at 32 ohms out of the single-ended output. So that's definitely enough power to power almost any full-size headphone and any IEM. It has a signal-to-noise ratio of 116 dBs out of the 4.4 output and 115 dBs out of the 3.5 output. Okay, so now let's talk about the buttons, knobs, inputs, and outputs. Of course, on the front here you have your main volume knob. This is actually a multi-function button as well, a selector button, and we'll talk about what that does here in a minute. You've got your Bluetooth pairing and input selector button. You have your X bass and X space selector button. You have your 4.4 pentagon balanced output. You have your 3.5 single-ended output. On the other side, you have a selector switch here where you can actually assign whether you want this button here to do either just bass, a bass boost, a presence, or bass and presence. So that's kind of cool. There you've got your charging port here, type C, then you have your type C USB input. You have an optical or a SPDIF input here. You have a balanced 4.4 input and then a single-ended 3.5 input. And on the top, you have your main display screen, which displays your battery level, your volume level, your input. It will also tell you if you have your X bass, X space, or both on. And then also, if you hold down the X bass button, then that will actually bring up your menu. And then you can scroll between your options and use the main volume button to select which options you want to choose or turn off and turn on. Then if you look on the bottom, you have your IE match switch. So you can either select whether you want the IE match to be activated on the 4.4 or the 3.5. In the middle, of course, it's off. And of course, the IE match, what that does is if you have a sensitive IEM like I do, the Campfire Andromeda 2020s, those are very, very sensitive IEMs. So what I normally do is, depending on which output I'm using, I will actually turn the IE match on, and that is a really cool little feature. So how does the Gryphon sound? Well, it sounds really good. As far as the sound presentation, it comes across to my ears as quite neutral or linear, so I don't sense any kind of elevation in either the bass, mids, or treble. Again, it's pretty linear across the entire frequency spectrum. Clarity is excellent. There's excellent detail and texture in the treble, mids, and bass. There's good texture in the mid bass. There's good slam in the bass. I don't hear any roll off in the treble or the bass. So overall, I would say the sound of the Gryphon is excellent. And again, we talked about the power output, having 1 watt of power out of the 4.4 Pentacon and 320 milliwatts of power out of the 3.5. And I've been using the 4.4 output for almost all of my IEMs, except for my, I do have a Pentacon cable for my Andromedas, but I typically just use the stock cable out of the 3.5. My headphones that I have, all of them, I have the 4.4 option for them. So usually when I'm listening out of the 4.4 output. And again, the power output of this is perfectly adequate for all of my headphones and all of my IEMs. So you shouldn't have a problem with power output at all, unless you have a really hard to drive over-ear headphone. But I would say even your hard to drive IEM, this is not going to have a problem pushing that. Okay, now as far as the Bluetooth actually sounds really good. I don't use Bluetooth much. If I'm going on a walk, I do use Bluetooth, and I do have some Bluetooth DACs. So if I'm wanting convenience over sound at the time, then I will select Bluetooth. But most of my listening is done hardwired, either through the USB or through the optical input. And I typically will use the LDAC format because that just seems to give me the best audio quality. So the Bluetooth is pretty good. As far as Bluetooth range, I'm able to pretty much go all throughout my entire house without losing my signal with this. The Bluetooth range is quite good on this. Now, as far as the X Space and the X Bass, generally when I'm listening to anything, if it has any kind of bass boost or any kind of processing, I don't usually use it other than for testing purposes. But most of the time, as far as just my personal listening time, generally I like to hear things just in their default modes. But again, for testing purposes, I did test out both the X Space and the X Bass. The X Bass actually is as usual with iFi, it seems like all of their products that have any kind of bass boost, generally it's well implemented and very tastefully done. And that's definitely the case with this. I don't hear, there is a bass and a sub-bass boost, but there is no bass bleed into the mids that I can hear. The mid bass still has really good texture, really good layering. So there's no muddiness or anything that I can detect when I'm using the X Bass. Again, it's just a tastefully implemented bass boost. Now, as far as the X Space, what that does is that actually gives you enhanced sound field. So it widens and deepens the sound field. Now, what I did notice, and it does do that, it does say what it's going, what it says it's supposed to do, which is great. But I did notice that you do sacrifice a little bit of imaging. So the imaging is just not quite as precise as it is when you don't have the X Space activated. It seems like the instrument density, and again, just that without the X Space, the imaging is incredible on this. The instruments have a very, very defined space within the sound field, and when you activate the X Space, it seems like that you lose that a little bit, and it sounds like there's the space is just not quite as defined, and sometimes the instruments or vocals can sound like they're kind of floating around within the sound field. But again, without it, the imaging is excellent and the soundstage is still wide. Okay, so let's bottom line the Gryphon. This is a $599 DAC, so that is a lot of money. And I can't tell you if this is for you or not. You kind of have to decide that on your own based on the information that I give you. What I can tell you is that the sound quality of this is excellent. The power output is adequate, again, for almost any earphone or headphone that you own, again, with the exception of probably some of the rare, extremely hard to drive headphones. But everything else, I feel confident this thing will drive it. Again, with a 1 watt of power output out of the 4.4, that should be adequate to drive anything. You also have Bluetooth capabilities. You've got the X Space, you've got X Bass. You have excellent build quality. And again, you have to decide whether this is something that's going to meet your needs for that price. There is a lot of competition in that price range out there. But again, I can say that the quality is definitely there. So iFi has demonstrated that they can put out a high quality product again and again and again. If you look back at my reviews, I reviewed the Diablo, the xDSD, the Signature. Every one of those sound incredible. And again, the quality, that while they might cost a little bit more, the quality is there. They consistently put out high quality, great sounding products. So that concludes my review of the Gryphon. I hope you guys liked it. Please like the video, please share the video, and please subscribe. I hope you guys have an awesome day.